Today we're going to be dealing with the quadratic formula and the discriminant. Now, I will tell you something about the quadratic formula is that it is a backup anytime that you can't factor. This formula works. Listen to me. You're going to be solving quadratic equations using factoring. That's what we're building to. That's why we factored, was to be able to build up the solving quadratic equations where it's equal to something. That's what our goal was. It doesn't always factor though. Also, sometimes the factoring numbers are large and hard to factor. If you cannot factor it, you can always use the quadratic formula. It usually takes a little bit longer. However, it always works. It doesn't sometimes work, sometimes not. It always works. So, this is going to be a formula that allows us to solve these quadratic equations that we've been building up to. So let's go ahead and get going on this. Here is what the quadratic formula looks like. Okay? This formula right here is the quadratic formula. It's the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Back in my day, you had to memorize that. It will help you if you memorize it. Watch the videos. I'll suggest you look up some videos on it. They're really bad. Look up wrap of the quadratic formula. You'll get quite some entertainment. However, the quadratic formula is on the formula sheet that you will be allowed to use on the EOC. And you will be allowed to use it on my test on this material. So you're going to be provided this. You're going to be allowed to use it on the day of the EOC and on my test. I will not deny you that. If you can use it on the EOC and it's there, I'm going to let you use it on the test. So there are parts of this quadratic formula that you need to know about. The first being that this plus or minus means that it creates two cases. You're going to do one with the plus and one with the minus, and you're going to get two separate cases. Now, there's times when that doesn't happen. We'll talk about that as we go forward, but that is going to create two cases. Also, you need to understand that this number that is underneath here, under this radical sign, is called the discriminant. It's going to tell you how many answers you get. That's one of the questions on like 6 problems on your homework, 5 or 6 problems on your homework. So you need to understand that they're going to be dealing with this discriminant and deciding how many answers you have based on that number. You're going to have to recognize where it is, what that number is, because that's, again, like 6 problems on your homework. Just ask you about the discriminant, and then how many solutions does that mean? If that discriminant, that number under the radical, is a positive number, you are going to get 2 answers, 2 solutions. Okay. If that discriminant is 0, you're only going to get 1 solution. 1 solution. The reason you're only going to get 1, because guys, if you take the square root of a positive number, of 0, it's going to be 0. And when you plus or minus 0, you get the same thing. So it's only going to give you 1 solution. And if you take the square root of a negative, guys, grab your calculator. Come on. Okay, type on your calculator. Second square root. And type -3 equals. Doesn't it give you an error? Hey, in the set of real numbers. Now, there are imaginary numbers. We're not there yet. That's Algebra 2. But under the set of real numbers, you cannot take the square root of a negative number. Therefore, anytime you have a negative under there, there are going to be 0 solutions. 0 solutions if you have a negative under the discriminant. Okay, 0 solutions if you have a negative under the discriminant. Let's go ahead and try some problems. That's everything we're learning today, guys, is this formula. That's it. The rest of what we got is just examples. Okay, here we go. Let's use it. So, when you have a quadratic equation that looks like this, this is a quadratic trinomial. You've seen these. We've done the vocab on them. We've done the factoring on them. Excuse me. Now we are going to solve them using this quadratic formula. In order to solve it, you're going to use the a, b, and c, which is the number that's in front of this x squared. So a in this case is going to equal 1 since there's nothing there. The b is going to be whatever's in front of the x term, which in this case is -2. And the c is going to be the constant, the one that is by itself at the end. So c in this case is going to be negative 35. You're going to use those three numbers in your quadratic formula, again, that you have on your formula sheet and you're looking at on your note sheet. And it starts off like this. It's going to be x equals. You write the opposite of, because you put a negative sign, that means the opposite of, and you put a parentheses, and whatever is here for b, you write that in there. So it's the opposite of negative 2 plus or minus the square root of, and it's a long square root, so give yourself some room. The next one is b squared. Guys, when you square a negative number, you need to have parentheses around whatever you're squaring. It is negative 2 squared. Minus 2, because the formula has a 2 in it. Look at the formula itself. Minus 4. Because the formula has a 4 in it. Please make sure you understand the formula has a 4 in it. All those 2's mess me up. It is going to be 4ac every time. So it's minus 4 times whatever a is times whatever c is. So a in this case is going to be 1. C in this case is going to be negative 35. Just for the top part, does anybody have a question where any of those number signs, anything about the top part where I filled it in came from?
Yeah, where did you get that from?
It comes from the formula. Look on your paper on the formula. It says minus 4ac. It's always going to have minus 4 in the front of it. It's a very good question. Yep.
So with the 2, since this all negative, is that what you would do? And then the negative.
Yep.
Okay.
Because what's the opposite of a negative? Yep. So we put the double sign there so that we turn it into a positive at the end. Good? Anybody else? It really makes a difference, because if you get that wrong, the whole problem's wrong. Yep. One negative sign will mess it up. Okay, it's going to be all over 2 times a, guys. So it's going to be all over 2 times what? What is a? 1. There we go. So all over 2 times 1. From here, this is called order of operations. This was like day 2 of this class. This is something that's review for stuff you're supposed to have done before, but we need to make sure you don't make arithmetic mistakes, because if you mess up the arithmetic on this, you mess up the whole problem. Here we go. The opposite of a negative is a positive, so it's going to be positive 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared. Guys, what's negative 2 times negative 2? 4, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And then you're going to multiply on your calculator this whole thing together, guys. Please listen to me. You want to type all this in as one big thing all together on your calculator. Okay? Negative 4 times 1 times negative 35. Type it all together. 140. Since it's a positive 140, you put a plus in front of it. If it was negative, you would have put a minus. And then, guys, it's all going to be over 2 times 1, but 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, just on that first step on that arithmetic, does anybody have any questions? Okay, let's keep going. X equals 2 plus or minus. When we add 4 and 140, it's going to be 144. That's all I did there was combine these two. That's all I'm doing is the arithmetic right here. Now, this is my discriminant. If my question said, what is the discriminant? My answer would be that the discriminant is equal to 144. It didn't ask that, but I'm telling you, you're going to be doing that in problems, so I want you to see that. If all it asked for was a discriminant, I could stop right now. I could also tell you how many solutions it has. Because this is discriminant is positive, how many solutions is that going to be? 2. 2 solutions. Again, that's something that your problems on here are going to ask. And you could stop right there. If that's all it asks for is what is the discriminant and how many solutions, you're done. I think there's 3 questions like that on your next test, guys. But this asked us just to go through and use the quadratic formula, solve this equation. So We're going to take the square root of 144, which, guys, it's on our list of perfect squares. You should know it. What is that number? 12. And now I've got to create the plus and minus case. So, guys, I'm actually going to set up two separate equations. I'm going to set up an equation that says 2 plus 12 all over 2. And I'm going to set up another one that says 2 minus 12 all over 2. How do I know I'm going to do it twice? Because I know I'm going to get two solutions. So what is 2 plus 12, guys? So 14 over 2. And what's 14 over 2? 7. There you go. For the next one, what is 2 minus 12? What is it, guys? Sorry, I didn't hear. Negative 10. Negative 10. And negative 10 divided by 2 is going to be what? Negative 5. Okay? These are solutions to this quadratic equation. These are going to be our answers to this problem. Solutions go in braces. We've done this before. This is not new. And solutions get listed from least to greatest. So you're going to be listing the negative 5 first, then the 7. If you want to put up here least to greatest so you remember to go in that order, write something to put it there so you'll remember that. Do you see how slow and deliberate I went through that? I didn't rush through. I didn't want to make an arithmetic mistake. There's nothing about this that's something you haven't seen before other than setting up the original problem. You've done all this arithmetic at some point along the way. But if you make an error on a negative sign, if you make an error on arithmetic, the entire problem will be wrong. You need to take your time and be very careful through this process. Thought I saw here. No? Okay. Here we go. Let's do it again. So, first things first, a quadratic equation cannot be solved using the quadratic formula or anything else unless it is equal to 0. It is also not in standard form. It doesn't go from the highest power to the lowest. It's got something on the other side. In order to solve it, it's got to be equal to 0. So the first thing we're going to do is move this 4 back over to the other side. The only way to move a positive 4 over to the other side is to subtract it. We did that the first day we solved equations in here by moving those 1 steps over. Now it's going to be 15x squared minus 8x minus 4 equals 0. We can't combine anything. Nothing is like terms. All we're doing is literally listing it from the highest power down to the lowest. Once it is equal to 0, you're able to pull out your A, your B, and your C. In this case, A would be equal to 15. The B would be equal to the negative 8. And the C would be equal to the negative 4. Okay. Sorry guys, my dog's at the vet. You're good. She woke up with stuff coming out of her ear infection, so I'm worried about her. So sorry if I'm distracted. I keep waiting to hear from the vet. I tell y'all whenever I'm waiting to hear from them, I'm distracted. Okay guys, here we go. So quadratic formula says x equals the opposite of b, which in this case is negative 8, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which in this case would be negative 8 squared, so I put parentheses around it, minus 4, it's always minus 4, times a, which in this case would be 15, times c, which in this case would be negative 4, all over 2 times a, which is 15. Just on the plugging in, does anybody have any questions? Anything about why anything went where it was, anything about it, anything about signs? This is all about arithmetic from here out. Yep.
Do you always put parentheses around
Around what?
Around
B. I do, but you can put dots, but people tend to get messed up with their negative signs if they do that. If you mean here, I usually only write them if it's a negative right there, because it's squaring. If you don't put them there when you square the negative, it won't square the negative sign. Yep. Good questions. Keep them coming, guys. Here we go. Okay, here we go. What's the opposite of negative 8? Just 8, guys. Just 8. Just 8. Plus or minus the square root of. What is negative 8 squared? What's negative 8 times negative 8? 64. And then you'll have to use your calculator, multiply this stuff together. You're going to be multiplying all these things together. So grab your calculators, multiply. Negative 4 times 15 times negative 4. What was it? 240. I was not hearing that. 240. Sorry, it was coming from different ways and I couldn't tell. All over 30. Kennedy, yes ma'am. Okay, you sure? Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else? Okay guys, here we go. X equals 8 plus or minus the square root of, what is 64 plus 240? 304. All over 30. Okay guys, again, at this point, I'm going to decide what my answers are going to be, like how many I'm going to have, and what the discriminant is. In this case, the discriminant would be equal to 304, and how many solutions would I have? 2. Why? Because my discriminant is positive. That's why I have 2 solutions. We're going to get the other kinds in a minute. We'll see both those coming up. Actually, I think I did one of those. Okay, guys, here we go. Take the square root of 304. It's going to be a decimal. Because you're in the problem, you're going to round to 2 decimal places. Do that now. Second square root, 304, equal. Give me 2 decimal places, rounded to 2. 44? 44?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Just making sure. Just want to make sure I get the right one on there. So, guys, 17.44, which means we take it and we set it up. We set up 2 cases. Why do we set up 2 cases? Because you have right here a plus or a minus. So we need the positive case and the negative case. We need 8 plus 17.44, all divided by 30. And we need x equals 8 minus 17.44, all divided by 30. Just on setting up those 2 problems. Does anybody have a question where those came from? Awesome. Okay, grab your calculators and add this together. 8 plus 17.44 would be 20, is it 5.44? And then what is 8 minus 17.44? I'll let y'all do that one. 8 minus 17.44. What was it? 0.44? There we go. Now, to get your final answer on each one of them, you're just going to divide. You're going to take 25.44 and divide by 30. It's going to be a decimal. Since it is your final answer, you're going to want to round your final answer to 1 decimal place. That's to the nearest tenth. So round your final answer to 1 decimal place. What's your final answer? 0.8. Okay. Actually, I think the directions on the homework say hundredths, so I want us to go with what they say. Hold on, let me look at what this says. Y'all know I like to stay consistent. No, it says hundredths, guys, so give me 2 decimal places. What's after the 4? Okay, so it goes up 8.5. I want to stay consistent with what the homework does, so 0.85. Okay, for the next one, it'd be x equals, if we divide negative 9.44 divided by 30, it's going to be negative, I know that. But what is 9.44 divided by 30? 0.3 what? 1 when you round it?
Yeah.
What's after the 1, just out of curiosity? 4? So it stays at 1. There we go. Now, your answers are solutions, so they go in braces. We go from the least to the greatest, so you list the negative 0.31 first. You list the 0.85 second. Okay, guys. Any questions? Okay. I'm going to keep going. Here we go. The next one, guys, the 15W is on the wrong side. You got to move it. Minus 15W. Minus 15W. Why do I put it right here? Because I want it to go in the middle, because I want them to go in order. This side's going to cancel out. I'm going to get 25W squared minus 15W plus 2, because I'm putting it in order from the highest power down to the lowest. That's the only way I can get my A, B, and C in the correct order. I need the highest power to go first because the square term is going to give me my A, which in this case equals 25. The one with just the W with power of 1 is going to give me my B, which is going to be negative 15. My C is going to be the constant, or the one without the variable at all, so that's going to be C equals 2. Once you have your A, B, and C, you're going to take that and you're going to plug it into your formula. It's going to be x equals the opposite of negative 15 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which in this case is going to be negative 15 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 25, times c, which is 2. Guys, you'll have the formula, but I'm telling you, if you know the formula, it's much easier to fill it in. Notice I don't even think about it because I know the formula. The opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I know it in my head. I was made to learn it. You will do better if you memorize this formula. It's easier to fill in. All over 2 times a, which is 2 times 25. Then we start working it out. The opposite of negative 15 is 15. Plus or minus. Now, you may need a calculator. Some of y'all might not remember, but it's on your list of perfect squares. 225. Nice. 225. Negative 15 times negative 15 is 225. Now this part you might need a calculator for because you got to make sure your signs are right. Get this part correct, guys. Negative 4 times 25 times 2. Negative 200. Perfect. 200, not 2,000. All over 50. What? No, because what's a negative times a negative? Right? What? Oh, wrong button. What is a negative 15 times negative 15? Try it on your calculator. Right.
What is the most minus?
What? Help me understand. No, you just got to ask a different way, sweetie. I'm not understanding the question. Okay. Because we're multiplying negative 15 by itself, it's a negative times a negative, which makes it into a positive. Okay. Okay, guys, do the subtraction. I think it's a perfect square, isn't it? X equals 15 plus or minus the square root of what? What's the discriminant? 25, thank you. 25 all over 50. Guys, if my discriminant is 25, how many solutions am I going to have? 2 solutions. If the discriminant is 25, I'm going to get 2. What's the most common you're going to get? 2. The others are special cases. We're going to do one of those in a second, but they're rare. They don't happen all the time. Most of them look like this. So square root of 25 is 5, and then we've got to do our cases. Our cases are going to be that x equals 15 plus 5 over 50, and x equals,
You did plus 5.
no, the square root of 25 is 5. Yep, you got to take the square root of it first. Yep. Thank you for saying something, though. Look, I definitely make careless errors, guys. But yeah, you have to take the square root of it first. So 15 minus 5 all over 50. So 15 plus 5 is going to be 20, and y'all use your calculators, do 20 divided by 50 and tell me what that is as a decimal. Just 0.4 even? We didn't round? Okay, so x equals 0.4. For this next one, 15 minus 5 is going to be 10, and 10 divided, that's going to be 0.2. Yeah? X equals 0.2. Now, when I list those, they're both positive when I put them in here. So which one do I list first? The 0.2 because it's worth less than the 0.4. Those are my two answers that go in my braces. Nice. Okay, guys. So last problem is going to be a special case. It's either going to be the zero case or the negative case. I don't know which one. So let's try this and see which one we get. Okay. Oh, anybody got questions on this before I go? We're still writing. Anything about it? Yeah. Just let me know. You're good. Oh, bitch. Good. Okay, here we go. Thank you for letting me know. So here we go. We got this last one. It says that A is equal to what? 1. B is equal to? -3. C would be equal to 5. It's already equal to 0. We didn't have to move anything. All we had to do was pull out our A, B, and C. We've got to plug it into our formula. When we plug it into our formula, it's going to be x equals. The first part of it is the opposite of B. In this case, that's a -3. Plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is going to be -3 squared, minus 4. It's always minus 4, guys. It's never anything else. It's just minus 4 times A, which in this case is 1, times C, which in this case is 5, all over 2 times A, which is 2 times 1. From that point out, it's arithmetic. You just got to get your arithmetic right. Use your calculators. That's what they're there for. The opposite of -3 is going to be 3 plus or minus the square root of, guys, what's -3 times -3? 9. And then multiply on your calculator this part. Use your calculator, guys. Don't get the arithmetic wrong. Do -4 times 1 times 5. -20. All over 2 times 1, which would be 2. Now we do the arithmetic to find the discriminant. The whole goal is to find out the number that's going to go under here, under this radical, to be our discriminant. We do 9 minus 20. So we bring down the 3, we bring down the plus or minus, we bring down the radical, but what is 9 minus 20? -11, all over 2. So my discriminant in this case is -11. If the discriminant is -11, how many solutions does it have? 0 solutions. That's it. 0 solutions. Okay? 0 solutions. So, yeah. So you would say no real solutions. The way you write this, if you're given braces to do it, guys, let's say you had braces that you were filling in on an answer blank, what would you put inside there? No, 0 is a solution. 0 is a number. You got to be careful about that. That's a very good thing to bring up. Don't put 0 in there, guys. 0 is an actual number. You can't put that in there. You just put it empty. No solutions means that the answer blank would have nothing inside the braces, because no numbers that are real numbers, not imaginary numbers, that's, I said, there are answers, but not under the real numbers. So the answer is actually going to be this with nothing inside of it. Okay, guys, that's your notes today. How do you know that? Because